Om Mahaganapataye Namaha. In this video, I'm going to talk about the concept of surrender and how you are doing this already and why this is not just a religious concept, and also how this concept of surrender is actually a technology. So what is surrender and how are you doing it already? Surrender is simply giving your decision-making faculty over to a source of power or authority figure. So how has this been playing out in our world today? How have we surrendered? Well, through the indoctrination of our society, from our parents, from our media, from our politicians, from everyone, is we give our power or our decision-making faculties away to social authority figures. Social authority figures are the politicians, the pundits on the media, experts, and we sort of take everything for granted. Now, taking everything for granted is putting us into a position of dealing with the consequences of that. So the bottom line is, what matters most is not that surrender is bad, it can also be a good thing. The question is, who are you or what are you surrendering to? There are instances where you do need to have your own decision-making faculties working properly, that you shouldn't be taking things for granted at face value because somebody tells you. In general, this is how we should be operating. However, the concepts of surrender in the yogic and siddha traditions, or in the more religious context, which, if you've been watching my channel, you know that I don't like religion, the dichotomy where we put science on this one side and our normal on one side, then we have religion on the other side. They're actually the same exact thing. It's just a label. There's a lot of loaded words. So religion, or what we're calling as spirituality, after all, is a path or a science of aligning yourself with your true nature of a soul. To say that we're not just a body, we're not just a mind. What is behind the mind? What is animating the body? What is this life energy that is all around us? And the concept of spirituality and religion is you're using different archetypes, whether they are messiahs, whether they are prophets, whether they are angels, gods, goddesses. You're using them to bring yourself to a sense of realization. That's why they call it as self-realization. Enlightenment is another word for enlightenment is self-realization. So the self is unchanging. This is why you are in a constant state of change. This is why we are more than just the brain and the mind. When you sleep, who's that? So the concept of religion and surrendering in these contexts is you are surrendering yourself to a higher aspect of reality, or an angelic, a messiah, a god, a goddess. You are surrendering with the intention of allowing someone who has realized a bigger part of themselves, or in some cases, and the ideal, is someone who has a self-realized being, or an enlightened being. And you surrender yourself to that being so that they can guide you. It's just like if you want to go from Los Angeles to Houston, Texas, you need a map, you need a GPS. And the concept of a guru, or a guru cannot just be a human being. Generally it is. But guru simply means a remover of darkness, or someone who is removing these layers and layers and layers of the mind, layers of the body, layers of genetics, layers of concepts, all these different layers that are used to modify the self that gives rise to our unique identities. So the concept is also in quantum physics. Quantum physics says that behind the strings, so we have matter, or ourselves, our intelligence, our everything about us, our bodies, our brains, is a byproduct of sound, or a different form of sound. That's what string theory says, that sound is a fundamental building block of what we call as reality. But what is the lap of sound? It's silence. So what does all sounds have in common? All sounds have in common the quantum ground state, or the unified field theory, as they call it. There's different terms. The silence. This is the self So the self is the unmodified life force energy, if you will, the unmodified um, intelligence that we condition and we modify to create ourselves. That's how we're all connected. Now, surrendering, what you're doing is you're surrendering to someone who has realized that part of themselves. That's it. That's the bottom line. That's why, that's where the concept of gurus and all these things come in. These are beings like Jesus, like the Buddha, like all different kinds. These Jesus and Buddha type figures, they're still living in India. They are still there because India is an unbroken lineage that is traced back times and more before recorded history. That's why India is considered as the spiritual motherland of the world. And after all, there's a lot of documents that say Jesus was in India meditating, and part of that was what made him into the enlightened being he was. That's controversial, but you can go and do your own research and look it up. Buddha as well. Buddha or Buddhism is born out of India as well. I'm not trying to make an argument here from India. I'm simply pointing out that there's a template there, a template that is a universal template that is not limited to a demographic or a geographical location. It is a demographic or a template of self-realization, and there are hundreds of paths to doing this. So the intention of this video is to bring into your awareness, what are you surrendering to? And can you or should you surrender? Do you want to surrender? Because if you do surrender to the right being, now when I say surrender, I can immediately think of people saying, I don't want to surrender. I don't want to give away my power. And what I'm trying to tell you is you are already giving away your power, whether you realize it or not. You're simply in a state of denial where you convince yourself you're not. Whether you're giving your power away to a person or whether you're giving your power away to your limited ego and your limited mind. Why do I say limited? Your mind is, after all, limited to your memories. Your mind is nothing but a collection or compilation of knowledge or memories, and is by definition limited. Your ego is the discriminating factor within you in general, who is your identity, who takes all the memories and organizes them into decisions, organizes them into an expression, organizes them into cognitions, into emotions. So your memory is limited. I think we can all agree that you don't know everything. You do at some level, but your mind, because there's more than the mind. This is the concept. So when you're surrendering to your mind, your ego, to another person, to an authority figure, you are surrendering. Anytime that you give your decision-making ability away that is not coming from your most authentic self, your true identity, you are surrendering. And all we're saying here is, instead of surrendering to a limitation, simply surrender yourself to the unlimited aspect of you, which can be embodied externally as a human being, as a prophet like Jesus or a Messiah. They can embody that because, after all, the inside and the outside are the same thing. That's why they say the teaching is, you look at the guru, whether that's Jesus was a guru, Buddha was a guru, anybody, as your higher self. Because the fact that they're in your space, they're in your environment, if you understand quantum physics observer theory, it's completely possible that your self within is expressed on the outside, and these expressions of the pure self, unmodified self, are what are we calling as the gurus or the prophets. So the question you have to ask yourself is, what do you want to surrender to? Because what is the byproduct of surrender is you become what you're surrendering to. If you're surrendering to a limited being, you become limited. Your decisions become limited because your decision making, you're basing your decisions off of a limited understanding. So surrender to the unlimited, surrender to your most authentic and true self, and seek the ultimate, because then you become the ultimate. Don't settle for anything less than the ultimate. You are the ultimate, and the goal of life is to express that in your own unique way. Just as there are hundreds, if not thousands, of different kinds of flowers. In God's garden, there are millions and millions of flowers. They're called gods, they're called goddesses. Who are they? They are perfected expressions of God in if you can imagine like God as a diamond. Perfect diamond has all these different facets. Each facet is absolutely perfect. Each facet is the diamond itself, but each facet is unique. So this is what all these gods and goddesses are. These are beings, angels, gurus, enlightened masters. These are simply beings who have realized themselves and are expressing a unique, perfected identity of God without losing or sacrificing anything, without any limitations of any kind. So I hope this video inspires you and introduces some concepts into your mind that bear beautiful, beautiful fruit. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave comments underneath this video. And as always, if you'd like to be notified for future videos, click the subscribe and the bell notification buttons. God bless.